Hello and welcome. It's February 21st, 2026, and what I'm about to share with you challenges everything we thought we knew about planetary science. Less than 8 hours ago, NASA's James Webb Space Telescope locked its instruments on a seemingly ordinary comet 3I Atlas. It was supposed to pass in front of a distant star, a stellar occultation, a routine event in astronomy. When we observe such events, the star should have vanished behind the solid mass of the comet, going dark as it was blocked by the comet's nucleus. That's how comets typically behave. But this time, something impossible happened. The star didn't disappear. It remained visible not just around the edges of the comet, but through the center. Picture that for a moment. A solid object 240 million kilometers from Earth, 5 kilometers wide, and instead of blocking light, it's transmitting it. This is no longer just a comet, it's something we can't explain by any known laws of physics. Imagine holding a jagged rock up to the sun. The light gets blocked, as you would expect. Now, imagine that rock suddenly transforming into a perfect lens, transparent to infrared light. That's exactly what 3I Atlas just did. This object, which was thought to be a simple comet, suddenly achieved the optical properties of high-grade industrial glass. Nature doesn't build windows in space, especially not at the scale we're seeing here. Ice reflects light. It doesn't turn transparent to infrared wavelengths on command. But that's what we saw. We're witnessing something that doesn't fit the standard model, and the data that came back is shaking the foundations of astrophysics. This wasn't a comet breaking up or fading away. The mass of the object is still there. The gravity is still there. But the opacity? That's gone. Now we have to ask, what is it hiding inside? And more importantly, why reveal this now, just as it passes close to Earth? To fully understand why this is rewriting textbooks, you need to consider the timeline. 3I Atlas was first discovered just 8 months ago. Initially, it behaved like a textbook comet fuzzy, with a coma and a tail, outgassing volatiles like carbon monoxide and water. Everything seemed normal. But then, on February 12th, just 6 days ago, everything changed. The coma, the cloud of gas and dust surrounding the nucleus, vanished in less than 4 hours. It didn't dissipate gradually like we expected, it just collapsed. And then, the nucleus itself began to dim, not because it was getting smaller, but because it stopped reflecting sunlight altogether. At that moment, astronomers thought the comet had disintegrated. This is the standard explanation. When comets break apart, dust scatters, and the object disappears. But the data from NASA's Deep Space Network told a different story. The mass was still there, 33 billion tons of it. It hadn't disintegrated. It had just stopped interacting with visible light. Now let me put this in perspective. If a mountain were floating in the sky, and 3 independent surveyors confirmed that the mountain was indeed floating, you would have to rewrite everything you know about gravity. And that's exactly what's happening with 3I Atlas. We have independent observations that confirm this object is massive enough to bend starlight, yet transparent enough to let that same light pass through. This object, which should be opaque, is somehow manipulating light in a way that defies all explanation. NASA's James Webb Space Telescope, ESA's Gaia spacecraft, and the Very Large Telescope in Chile all came to the same conclusion. The object is solid, it's massive enough to bend light, but it's transparent, letting starlight pass through as though it's a perfect lens. This isn't just rare, it's unprecedented. Over millions of years of studying comets, no one has ever seen an object behave like this. And as incredible as this is, it gets even stranger when we analyze the light that passed through. When light passes through an object, we usually expect it to scatter in all directions. But the light coming through 3I Atlas wasn't just ordinary light. It was polarized, meaning it was vibrating in a single plane rather than randomly. This doesn't happen with random gas or ice. It happens when light passes through an engineered optical material, a polarizing filter. This suggests 3I Atlas isn't just transparent, it's an optical instrument, and it may have a purpose far beyond anything we understand. This raises a chilling question. Could 3I Atlas be a metamaterial? Metamaterials are substances engineered to have properties that don't exist in nature. In our labs, we can create small pieces of metamaterials that bend light, making objects invisible. But what if 3I Atlas, an object 5 kilometers wide, is a natural metamaterial, or, more likely, an artificial one? What if it's not a comet at all, but a massive engineered structure designed to manipulate light? And why is it doing so? Is it hiding something inside, or is it using this transparency for propulsion, communication, or something even more sophisticated? We need to consider the possibility that what we're seeing is not natural at all. What if the most efficient way to travel the stars isn't in a metal spacecraft, but inside a massive engineered crystal that can harvest starlight directly? What if transparency is a feature, not a flaw? Just when we thought the physics couldn't get any more bizarre, the trajectory data came in. 3I Atlas, a transparent object, is accelerating. Objects like this should behave differently under sunlight. But 3I Atlas isn't just passing through, it's speeding up. It's a mystery that doesn't fit the natural world. This should be the end of the story, right? Something so far beyond our understanding of physics, our minds are struggling to comprehend it. But the journey is just beginning. What's next for 3I Atlas, and what will we discover about it in the coming weeks? Stay tuned, this is far from over. As the story of 3I Atlas unfolds, we're left with more questions than answers. The accelerating mystery surrounding this object is causing a stir in the astrophysical community, and for good reason. Just when we thought we had a handle on what we were dealing with, the data took another unexpected turn. On February 14, 2026, at exactly 8:30 UTC, NASA's tracking data revealed a shift in the trajectory of 3I Atlas. Now, this isn't just a small deviation or something you might chalk up to observational error. No, what we're seeing here defies Kepler's laws of planetary motion. In the typical case, when a comet passes through the solar system, it's pushed along its trajectory by gravitational forces, often aided by jets of gas or ice that create a rocket effect as they vaporize. We call this non-gravitational acceleration, but 3I Atlas isn't following that script. There are no jets, there's no visible gas, no coma. It's a solid, transparent block, and yet it is accelerating. NASA's Deep Space Network confirmed a shift in velocity, an acceleration of 0.003 astronomical units per day, directed away from the Sun. That's right, an object with no visible means of propulsion is moving faster. And this is happening without the usual mechanisms that we've relied on to explain such movements. There's no mass ejection, no pressure from solar wind acting on a large surface area. It doesn't make sense by any natural laws we know. This behavior is so perplexing that it prompted an urgent, classified briefing at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. The data was not just unusual, it was a game changer. The polarization of light, which we previously thought was a passive characteristic of the object, is now changing. The angle of polarization shifted by exactly 14 degrees, and it did so in perfect synchronization with the acceleration burst. This is not normal. The angle of polarization should not be so precisely linked to changes in the object's motion unless something is manipulating light in a very intentional way. Here is the most likely explanation. 3. I. Atlas is not a passive lens or a simple optical object. It seems to be functioning as an active photonic drive, bending sunlight that enters the front face of the object, refracting it internally through its unique structure, and ejecting it out the back with specific momentum. This isn't a solar sail, which relies on light pressure. No, this is something far more sophisticated. It's a solid-state engine, using the geometry of its own atomic structure to convert starlight into thrust. To put it simply, it's sailing on light. Think about the engineering required to make this possible. This is a technology that, if the hypothesis holds true, is thousands, if not millions of years ahead of our own. Humanity is just beginning to experiment with solar sails, which are still incredibly thin and fragile. 3. Atlas, on the other hand, appears to be using a solid, crystalline structure that's thousands of times thicker and more efficient. It's something we can only dream of in a laboratory, but here it is, an object in deep space, using light as its fuel. And the most chilling part? The acceleration vector of 3I Atlas is not random. It's not just moving away from the sunday. It's actively correcting its course. To be clear, this object is not on a typical, predictable path. It's shifting in a way that suggests it is actively adjusting its trajectory, as if it's headed toward a very specific destination. And that destination is where the story takes an even darker turn. We have confirmation that the path of 3I Atlas no longer aligns with a simple hyperbolic curve, an exit trajectory through the solar system. It's not just passing through. It's moving toward the L5 Lagrange point. For those unfamiliar, the L5 point is a stable region of space located 60 degrees behind Earth in its orbit around the sunday. It's a perfect observation post. Objects that reside there can stay stationary relative to Earth indefinitely with minimal energy expenditure. This is no random drift. This is calculated movement, and the implications are profound. The fact that 3I Atlas is shifting toward L5 suggests that it might not be an object simply passing by. If this object slows down and adjusts its trajectory even further in the coming weeks, we might not be looking at a traveler anymore. We could be looking at a visitor one that's about to make its presence known in ways we can't yet comprehend. Now, let's connect the dots. Here we have an object with the transparency of an engineered crystal. It's accelerating in a way that suggests it's using starlight for propulsion. It's bending light and manipulating photons like we would with a finely tuned optical system. We've observed it using a method of propulsion that humans haven't even begun to replicate. It's heading toward a gravitational parking lot, a perfect observation point, where it can remain stationary and watch Earth indefinitely. Are we looking at a probe from another civilization? Could this be the signal we've been waiting for, the first real evidence that we are not alone in the universe? The evidence is pointing towards something far more advanced than anything we've ever imagined. Something deliberately placed in our path, perhaps to observe us, to communicate, or to do something we haven't even thought of yet. But before we get ahead of ourselves, the real question remains, why now? Why is 3I Atlas revealing itself at this precise moment? What is it waiting for, and what is it planning to do once it reaches the L5 point? The answers to these questions are just around the corner. As we wait for more data to come in, one thing is certain: the next few weeks will be crucial in determining just what 3I Atlas is. And when it reaches its perihelion, the moment when it's closest to the Sun, we will have a much clearer picture of what's going on. As the telescopes stay locked on this object, the countdown is ticking. Stay tuned, because we are on the edge of a discovery that could change everything. As the days pass and the mystery of 3I Atlas deepens, new pieces of data continue to fall into place, and each one challenges what we know about space, physics, and even the possibility of life beyond Earth. The most recent developments only add more layers to the enigma. We are now approaching the critical point in the timeline where everything could change. This is no longer just a comet we're watching pass through the solar system. We're observing something far more complex, something that seems to be operating on principles of physics we don't yet understand. Let's dive into the specifics of what we've learned over the past few days. As I mentioned earlier, 3I Atlas is accelerating in a way that no natural object should. This acceleration isn't due to the usual causes, no ice sublimation, no jets of gas shooting out from the nucleus. No, this object is doing something entirely different. It's manipulating its own internal structure to achieve propulsion. This is the game changer. The object appears to be using a photonic drive, bending light to propel itself through space, and it's doing this using a mechanism that defies the laws of physics as we understand them. Now, the latest data has confirmed something even more astonishing. As the object moves closer to its perihelion, we've been monitoring its trajectory closely. One thing stands out: the object has been moving in a very deliberate way, as though it's following a predetermined path. Its course is changing again, not due to any external forces, but because it's actively correcting itself. This isn't just an accident of gravity. It's as if 3I Atlas has a mission, a destination, and that destination is becoming clearer by the day. Earlier, we talked about the L5 Lagrange point, a stable spot in space that sits 60 degrees behind Earth in its orbit around the Sun. It's the ideal place for an object to park itself and remain relatively stationary without expending much energy. If 3I Atlas is indeed heading toward L5, then we're looking at something far beyond a simple comet passing through. We're looking at a sophisticated, purposeful object that's positioning itself for a very specific reason, and that reason might be to observe Earth or perhaps to make contact. But the deeper you look into the data, the more unsettling the picture becomes. As 3I Atlas accelerates and adjusts its trajectory, the light it emits continues to behave in ways that challenge our understanding of physics. The polarization of the light passing through the object has been shifting in perfect sync with its acceleration bursts. This isn't just a passive property, it's an active feature, suggesting that 3I Atlas is using its unique structure not just for propulsion, but for communication too. It's as if the object is transmitting a signal, something we can't yet decode, but which might hold the key to understanding what it is and what its intentions are. One thing is clear: 3I Atlas is not behaving like any comet we've ever observed. Everything about its composition, its movement, and the way it interacts with light suggests it's something much more than a natural celestial body. If it is artificial, it could be a probe, a relay station, or a sophisticated observation tool designed by a civilization far more advanced than our own. But we're not there yet. We still don't know enough to make that leap, and this is where the real urgency lies. The clock is ticking, and we're running out of time. In just a few weeks, 3I Atlas will reach its perihelion, the closest point in its orbit to the Sun. This is the moment when we will finally get the clearest picture of what's really happening with this object. Will it continue to accelerate? Will it slow down? Will we see a sudden burst of activity or a dramatic change in its trajectory? These are the questions that keep astrophysicists up at night, and they are the questions that will determine whether 3I Atlas is truly something extraordinary or simply an outlier in our understanding of the cosmos. As we approach the perihelion, every observatory, every telescope, and every scientific instrument will be focused on 3I Atlas. This will be our final opportunity to collect the data that will either confirm or debunk the theories that have been swirling around this object since it was first discovered. And with every passing hour, we are edging closer to an answer that could change everything we know about space, physics, and the potential for intelligent life beyond our planet. But there's one more thing to consider. The recent acceleration burst from 3I Atlas isn't just about its trajectory, it's also about its interaction with light. It's bending light, polarizing it, and using it in ways that we can only begin to understand. This suggests that 3I Atlas has an internal mechanism, a highly advanced system capable of manipulating the very fabric of space-time. This is technology that is millions of years ahead of our own, and it's something that could forever change how we think about propulsion, energy, and even the way we travel through space. And here's where it gets even more intriguing. If 3I Atlas is indeed some form of alien technology, it could be just one part of a much larger network or system. Imagine a vast interstellar web with probes like 3I Atlas scattered across the universe, all working together to gather information, relay data, or perhaps even make contact with other civilizations. What if we are not looking at a solitary object, but at a message, one that's been intentionally placed in our path to awaken us to the reality of life beyond our planet? The implications are staggering. If this is truly an artificial object, then we are standing on the threshold of a new era in human history. We are on the brink of discovering that we are not alone in the universe and that the technology we're seeing in 3I Atlas is far beyond anything we could have imagined. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We still have much to learn, and the coming weeks will be crucial in determining what 3I Atlas really is. As it reaches its closest point to the Sun, we will have a front-row seat to the most significant discovery of our time. This is a story that's still unfolding, and one that could change the course of history. Stay tuned, because we are on the verge of something extraordinary. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on the latest developments as we continue to track 3I Atlas. The truth is out there, and we're closer than ever to uncovering it. As we continue to track 3I Atlas, the mystery grows deeper and more complex by the day. We are rapidly approaching the moment when everything we thought we knew about space and celestial bodies could be turned upside down. The latest data has confirmed something that many astronomers had quietly suspected but hoped was simply an anomaly. There's no longer any doubt. 3I Atlas is not behaving like any comet we've ever seen. It's not simply an unusual object, it's something entirely outside our current understanding of astrophysics. One of the most significant discoveries in the past few days is related to the object's increasing acceleration. We've already discussed how 3I Atlas has been changing its trajectory, moving in a way that doesn't fit any natural model. But now, we're seeing an even more bizarre pattern emerge. As the object draws closer to its perihelion, the rate of acceleration is increasing. This is no longer just a passive movement, it's actively pushing itself through space. And what's truly extraordinary is that there's no external force that should be causing this. No jets of gas, no solar wind pressure, nothing that could account for this change in speed. To understand how unusual this is, consider this. When a typical comet passes close to the Sun, it heats up, and the ice on its surface begins to vaporize. This creates jets of gas that push the object forward, a process known as non-gravitational acceleration. This is a common phenomenon in the world of comets, but with 3I Atlas, there are no jets, no outgassing. The object is transparent, smooth, and solid, yet it's accelerating as if powered by some internal force. NASA's Deep Space Network has been tracking the acceleration of 3I Atlas in real time. The data shows an acceleration of 0.003 astronomical units per day away from the Sun, something that simply shouldn't be happening. To make matters even more puzzling, The polarization of light passing through the object has been changing in sync with these acceleration bursts. This means that whatever is inside 3I, Atlas, whatever is driving this acceleration, is intimately linked to the way the object interacts with light. This shift in polarization is a critical clue. Light normally vibrates in all directions, but when it passes through a polarizing lens, it is filtered and vibrates in a single direction. This is what we're seeing with 3I Atlas. The polarization of the light passing through it is not random. It's changing with a precision that suggests the object itself is an optical instrument. This could mean one of two things. Either the object has evolved an incredibly advanced natural structure capable of manipulating light to this degree, or it's engineered to behave this way, a piece of technology that has been deliberately designed to bend light and generate thrust. If this is some form of advanced technology, it's operating on principles that go far beyond anything we can currently achieve. The idea of using light to propel an object through space with no moving parts, no fuel, and no visible propulsion system is something that we've only dreamed of. Yet here it is, in front of us, a solid crystal-like object capable of generating its own momentum. If this is an alien craft or even just an alien probe, it's a piece of engineering that defies everything we know about physics. But the questions don't stop there. As 3I, Atlas continues on its path, moving steadily toward the L5 Lagrange point, its behavior seems to be increasingly deliberate. Its course correction, its acceleration, and the shift in polarization all point to a single conclusion. This object is not a random cosmic event. It's not an anomaly. It's a crafted, purposeful object, perhaps a probe, designed with a clear mission. The more we learn, the more it seems that 3I Atlas is a signal, a message, or maybe even a first contact. And then, there's the question that no one can ignore. Why now? Why is this object revealing itself at this exact moment in time? Why is it accelerating now, heading toward a stable point in space where it can sit, observing, watching, possibly waiting? The answer could reveal the most significant discovery humanity has ever made. Now, let's consider the trajectory in more detail. As we've established, 3I Atlas is heading toward the L5 point, an area of space that is effectively a gravitational parking lot, where objects can remain stationary relative to Earth. If this object has been deliberately placed on a course toward this location, it's either because it's gathering data or because it's preparing for something much bigger. The fact that it's correcting its course means it's not just passing through, it's positioning itself for something, and what that something is remains to be seen. It's important to note that L5 is a perfect observation post. The position of 3I Atlas there would give it an unobstructed view of Earth, the Sun, and the rest of the solar system. Why would an object want to observe Earth so closely? What could it be looking for? These questions are far from idle speculation. The data from the past few days suggests we are not just dealing with a curiosity of nature, but with something much more purposeful, a construct with intent. As we continue to monitor this object, every new piece of data brings us closer to a revelation that could alter the course of history. If 3I Atlas is indeed an alien probe or an artificial object, then we are looking at the dawn of a new era of space exploration and potentially the beginning of contact with an intelligence far beyond our own. But we're not there yet. We still need more information to make that leap, and with every passing day, the tension builds as we approach the critical moment, the perihelion of 3I Atlas. In just a few weeks, when it reaches its closest point to the Sun, everything will change. We will have the final pieces of the puzzle. Will 3I Atlas continue to accelerate? Will it slow down, revealing more of its true nature? Whatever happens next will be pivotal in answering the biggest question of all. What is this object, And where is it from?